Hey guys, it's nearly my bedtime, and before bedtime, I decided to read book before bedtime. And of course, we'll continue with the book Wave Me Goodbye by Jacqueline Wilson. We have a long journey reading this book, right? As you can see here, we have finished over half of the book already. So just a few more chapters until we finish the Wave Me Goodbye book. It is such a long journey, but I think it's worth it because reading this book is so interesting. And in chapter 17, it's even more interesting because, in this last chapters, like all the adults, Shirley, Miss Chubby, always thought that, like the little kid, the smallest one, is always the one who pee on the bed, but today, he isn't the one who pee on the bed. Can you guess who's the one that pee on the bed at night? Well, you'll find out soon. It's going to be so shocking. Alright, let's get started. Chapter 17. That night, I couldn't sleep properly, even though my new cat bed was so comfortable, with the pillow cushioning my head. I wriggled round and round in my sleeping bag when I heard the grandfather clock downstairs chiming 12. I started telling myself the story of Cinderella, and then I tried to turn it into a ballet. Pauline played Cinderella. She wasn't the best dancer, but she looked the part with her long blonde hair. Posy played a tiny fairy godmother and did a very complicated series of pirouettes before waving her magic wand. Petrova and I were the ugly sisters and worked out a comical routine. But after a while, it was too much effort to keep pretending. Worries about Jessica and Mom and Dad kept stopping the dancing. I curled into a tight ball, trying to ignore the twitch of my bladder. I knew I needed to go to the WC, but I was afraid of going along the pitch-dark corridor. I started to wish Chubby had a chamber pot in my room, as well as Archie's. Yeah, Archie's. All along, he wasn't the one who peed on the bed at night. Let's see who it was. Eventually, it got so painful that I had to struggle out of my sleeping bag and feel my way out of the room and down the corridor. I got to the right room at last and opened the door, and then bumped into something big and cold and bony, just like a skeleton. I screamed. It screamed too. Kevin! Shut up. You're awake, everyone, he hissed. It was too late. Suddenly outside, the light went on. Kevin and I blinked at each other. He was sitting on the toilet with his sleeping bag wrapped around him, as if he were camping there. He was shivering. His face very pale, his eyes all peepy with tiredness. What on earth are you two playing at? Chubby stood looking at us, arms folded, shaking her head. She wore an old coat as a dressing gown, and her bare feet looked very pale and flat, like a pair of plates. I needed to go to the toilet. I still do, I said, hopping from one foot to the other in agony. Oh, wow. Out you come then, Kevin, said Chubby, grabbing hold of him and hauling him out into the corridor. I charged in and slammed the door, and then waited for a long time. I could hear Chubby scolding Kevin. When I came out at last, he was hanging his head, his sleeping bag trailing on the floor, looking thinner and glandular than ever in his old underpants. What were you playing at? Chubby demanded. Were you hiding there on purpose to give everyone a fright? No, of course not. I needed the toilet. It's not a crime, is it? Kevin said. Well, there was no need to drag your brand new sleeping bag in there too, said Chubby. Now, get back to bed, both of you. I haven't been yet, said Kevin. Chance would be a fine thing. Well, go then while I wiggle little Archie out of his bed and get him to tinkle in that pot. He's got a rubber sheath just in case, though he's got to get himself trained. He might look like a baby, but he's a little lad after all, said Chubby. I helped her ease Archie out of the bed and hold him over the pot. He was still half asleep, all warm and limp. Come on, little soldier, do a wee for Chubby, she said, rubbing her cheek against the top of his head. Bless him, Shirley. He's going to look like a baby duckling soon with all this fluff. Once he performed, we tucked him into bed again. Chubby sent me back to bed too. I heard her berating Kevin, who was still in the WC. He grumbled back at her through the door, but he had to come out eventually. I was pretty sure she wouldn't tuck him up tenderly. I drifted off to sleep, feeling sorry for Kevin. I felt even sorrier in the morning. I woke up to hear Chubby yelling at him again. She sounds really furious this time. I went and stood in the boys' bedroom doorway, gaping. Kevin's sleeping bag lay unzipped and spread out. It was sodden. It was you peeing the bed all the time, she shouted, smacking Kevin about the head. I said it wasn't me, said Archie. A great little lad like you. Chubby was lying into Kevin again. I couldn't help it, he cried, trying to dodge the blows. I tried to stay up so I wouldn't do it. You should have left me in the toilet. It's your fault, not mine. I cannot help it. Of course you can help it. You're just too bone-idle to get yourself up when you need to go, Chubby insisted, and I'm the poor soul who had to cope with all the washing. But it's not even that. It's the fact that you let little poor Archie take the blame. So it turned out it was Kevin who peed on the bed. So because they have their own bed right now, and they didn't sleep on the floor like they used to. So Chubby always thinks that Archie is the one who peed, but turns out it was very glad Kevin. I didn't say it was him, Kevin said. You just guessed. I can't help it if you was wrong. It's not my fault. It isn't his fault, Chubby, I said, feeling sorry for him. You keep your nose out of it, miss, she said. Kevin went painfully red. He hadn't been seen me peering in. Yes, clear off, he said ungratefully. So I did. I really did feel sorry for Kevin. It seemed awful that he should still do such a babyish thing as wetting the bed. He was so ashamed. He wouldn't even look at me at breakfast. Archie was in his element, though. Chubby made a great fuss of him because she'd given him so many ticking off for the wet the bed. My poor lamb, she kept saying. Archie put his head on one side and went bah. It wasn't particularly amusing, especially when he went on and on doing it, but Chubby roared with laughter and chucked him under the thin. You're a little card, Archie, she said. You'll end up on the stage. You mark my words. I might be on the stage one day, I said. Chubby looked at me. You're a bit plain for her, aren't you? She said bluntly. Aren't actresses supposed to have blonde, wavy hair and curvy figures? I might get a curvy figure when I'm older, and I could dye my hair and have a perm if I wanted. Only I don't actually want to be an actress. I want to be a ballet dancer. I said, loftily, trying to show her as she hurt my feelings. Dancers don't have to be pretty, just so as long as they're graceful. Graceful, huh? I wouldn't say you're that either, said Chubby. I hadn't finished my breakfast, but I went up in a huff. Kevin slopped off too. We met on the landing. He took hold of my wrist. Listen, he said urgently. If you say anything about me doing what at school, I'm flipping well kill you. I won't say a word. Stop it. You're hurting me. You promise? Yes. Now shove off, I said. He slouched off, his hands in his pocket, trying to whistle as if he didn't have a care in the world. He wasn't very convincing. I held up in my bedroom and found all the dance illustration in my copy of ballet shoes. I did my best to copy them. Then I tried inventing the Cinderella dance, taking all the parts. It was exhausting but exhilarating. Exhausting, exhilarating, Shirley's full of grace. I sang to that immortal, invisible hum tune as I pirouette around the room. I was so chubby. I didn't like her anymore. I hated the way she shouted at Kevin and hit him. She was so unfair. I worried about her telling tales to Mrs. Waverly. She was sleeping late, but eventually I heard her tapping her way down the stairs. I swept a deep curtsy to my imaginary audience, caught many invisible bouquets of flowers, and then went down to the kitchen. Chubby had made Mrs. Waverly a cup of tea and some toast. They were deep in a discussion about Kevin. Archie was standing on a stool playing with soap bubbles in the sink. He was chewing noisily on last night's toffee. Soak through! How am I going to get the damn thing dry by tonight? Even if the sun's out, this is Sussex, not the Bally Sahara, Chubby complained, and he hasn't even said sorry, the lazy great lump. He didn't say sorry because he's too embarrassed. I said, he didn't do it on purpose. He can't help it. Can't you see that? I'll thank you to hold your tongue, Missy, and stop being so impertinent, said Chubby, but she gave me 2 squares of toffee. I wanted to refuse them out of the principle, but I couldn't resist popping them in my mouth. Shirley's right, I suppose, said Mrs. Waverly. Bedwetting is an illness. I suppose I better take young Kevin to the doctor's. He won't go. He would absolutely hate talking about it to anyone, I said distinctively, my teeth glued together with toffee. Well, we can't just ignore the problem, Chubby snapped. My hands are getting rubbed raw with all this extra washing. I didn't know what we were going to do with the boy. He's a bag of nerves, forever blundering into things and biting his nails. He'll be far happier somewhere else. You've heard about this hostel for boys. I'm sure he'll love it. No, stop it. You don't really think that. You just want to get rid of him. You never wanted him in the first place, I said furiously. Hold your tongue, said Chubby, giving me a little shake. Of course we didn't. You were thrust on us, all 3 of you. 1 more kiddies than everyone else in the village. We have more than done our duty. You're settled down in spite of your fatty ways. Only yesterday you were begging your mom to stay here, and little Archie's no bother, bless him. Archie turned around the mention of his name. He smiled at her and blew her a soap bubble. Chubby blew him a kiss back. But as for Kevin, she continued, well, it doesn't fit, does he? He needs to go to this hostel place. It's probably be the making of him. Oh, Chubby, said Mrs. Waverly, looking at her directly. Do any of us fit? Chubby's face went as red as her sore hands. Up you go now, Shirley, and stop cluttering at my kitchen, she said quickly. Yes, run along, Shirley, said Mrs. Waverly. Mrs. Waverly. I didn't run. I dawdled, not knowing where to go. I considered creeping upstairs to get the key to the locked room. I longed to see that doll's house again, but knew it was too risky. I went back to my room, though it suddenly seemed very empty, in spite of my camp bed and my neat pile of books, and Dad's case. Pauline, Petrova, and Posy had gone. Perhaps they hadn't liked my impromptu ballet. Maybe they're simply faded away because I couldn't imagine them well enough. This happened all the time now. It was probably because I was getting older. It frightened me. I didn't know how to cope without my imaginary friends. No, and I didn't have any real ones. I had Jessica, of course, if she was still my friend now. And what about Kevin? He wanted us to be pals, but that wasn't really the same as proper friends. Even so, I looked for him, but he wasn't in his room. His bed was stripped back, his sleeping bag removed in a public demonstration of his shame. Archie's rubber sheeting was now footed at the bottom. Archie himself didn't want to play. He was too happy being spoiled by Chubby. Even I suggested a paddling trip to the seaside. Don't you dare suggest that, you silly girl, Chubby protested. He half drowned himself before. Don't listen to her, little man. You stay away from that nasty water, or Chubby will have your guts for garters. Archie chuckled at the expression and cozy up to her. Me stay away with my Chubby. Me stay with my Chubby, he lisped in a sickening baby voice. So I wandered off into the garden myself. I circled the hen house and ragged vegetable patch. There were a couple of rabbits busy nibbling cabbages, and tried squatting beside them, asking them if they'd like to be my special pets. I promised them a cabbage each whenever they fancy, plus carrots, lettuce, and whatever else was a rabbit delicacy, but they whisked away hurriedly, showing me their white tails. I wandered around to the front of the house and wondered about picking a bunch of late roses, but they were much too prickly. I went looking for the legs myself, which took quite a while because it was so easy to get lost. One clump of trees looked much like another. I tried calling for Kevin, hoping he might be somewhere near, but no one answered. My voice sounded strange in the silence, and I pressed my lips together. When at last I found the lake, I felt obliged to take off my shoes and socks and have a paddle. I even thought of going in for a proper dip. It was very warm and sunny, but the thought of swimming all by myself was a bit unnerving. I knew how to swim. I learned a public bath near my old house, but had one managed a whole length of breaststroke. Although I was gasping by the time I got to the end, I wasn't sure how deep the lake was. Perhaps I panicked halfway across, trying to put my foot down and find a way out of my depth. Perhaps I didn't have a towel, and I didn't want to go back to the house dripping wet. Instead, I walked all the way around the lake, trying to appreciate the scenery, squinting up the birds. I hoped I'd see a kingfisher again, but all the birds were a dull uniform, brown. I was getting very bored, and decided I'd better be off reading. I found my way back to the path and saw someone trudging along towards the house, someone my own size, wearing purple uniform. A dark plait hung all the way down her back. "Jessica!" I cried joyfully. "There you are," she said. "I was just this minute willing you to appear, and you have." She rushed up, and I thrilled her arms around her. "Where were you yesterday?" I rushed down early, and it was outside a Grudge sweet shop from 2:30 till 3:30, when hateful Sister Josephine made us to go back to the White House. "What happened? You didn't forget, did you?" "No, of course not. I wanted to come, but I couldn't because my mom came here," I explained. "Your mother?" Jessica seemed taken aback. "Oh, Shirley, is she still here? Is she going to take you home again? Did she come back because she was missing you? Oh, you lucky, lucky thing. How wonderful. I'm so happy for you." She didn't look happy at all. Her face was very white and pinched, and she was frowning. "I think she just came because I wrote this postcard, saying I hated it here, and I didn't have a bed or any proper food," which was sort of true then, but actually now I've got a camp bed, and Chubby gives us nice food, and she doesn't make rabbit pie anymore, and... "What did your mother say? Was she very angry with you?" Jessica gripped my arm. "Yes, a bit. Well, a lot," I admitted. She shouted at Chubby, too. It was ever so embarrassing. "You must tell me all about it in every detail," said Jessica. We were walking toward the house, but she veered away. We don't need to go in now, found you. I don't want Mrs. Wawe phoning Lady Amersham or one of the nuns to tell tales on me, so they don't know you're here." Jessica rolled her eyes. Of course not. I was at the back of the crocodile gonna church, and I just hung back and steadily make a bolt for it in the other direction. But won't you get into the most tremendous trouble? Oh, I don't doubt it, but I'll make up some story. Who cares anyway? I simply had to see you. Well, I was desperate to see you yesterday, and I kept begging Mom to come to the village with me, but she absolutely wouldn't. She just wanted it to be her and me together. You know what moms are like, I said, sighing. Jessica didn't look as if she knew at all. Tell me, she said. So we wandered arm in arm through the woods, and I told her everything, making it very dramatic, just to be entertaining. I had Mom bang on the door, screaming her head off, and actually slapping Chubby. Jessica listened attentively, frowning. She must care about you immensely, she said. Imagine missing you so much. Perhaps I wasn't being tactful. Jessica had made it plain that her mother wasn't bothered about her, though I hadn't quite believed that. She was just fussing, that's all. She always does. As she can't really be missing me, she won't let me come home with her. She wants me to go to the Cotswolds, wherever they are. There are some relatives there. Not my relatives. They belong to this Uncle Gerald. Only he's not my real uncle. He is this man my moms know, I said in a rush. Jessica's eyes opened wide. She gave an odd little smile. Oh, I see, she said. So this Gerald was your mom's boyfriend? No, what? Of course not. I was shocked. My mom's married to my dad. As if that makes any difference, said Jessica. Yes, it does. Ladies don't have boyfriends, not if they're already married, I insisted. Of course they do. My mother has boyfriends all the time, whether she is currently married or not, Jessica said airily. You're such a baby, Shirley. I'm not. Your mom might be like that because she's an actress, but my mom's just an ordinary secretary, and this Gerald is her new boss, I said. Well, that's the most classic situation of all, Jessica said. No, it's not. My mom would never do that. She loves my dad, I said, but even as the words came out of my mouth, I was starting to wonder. I was pretty sure my mom did love Dad. And then they keep talking and talking. And when I wanted you to call, I'd call you like this, said Jessica, taking a blade of grass too and holding against her lips. She blew into it and made a piercing whistle. Show me how to do that. I tried and tried, but I made the grass limp and soggy. And we keep playing games together. It was so fun. We laughed a lot. I gave her a hug, loving her so much. I felt as I might burst, and walked her back to the path and all the way down the driveway. See you at 2:30 at the sweet shop next Saturday, Jessica said. Yes, I swear I'll be there this time. I promised. And that's the end of chapter 17. Thank you for watching, and let's continue with chapter 18 next video. Bye. Bye.